Denny had media availability on Saturday, I think, after winning the pole, and he was kind of quoting what the media had been reporting, but he's like, if we wanted to up the horsepower to 750, it's one phone call away, and we can get this thing running in a few weeks.
Yeah.
He went in depth on that on Actions Detrimental. I don't know if we have a clip.
Yep.
We can play it for you.
Great.
It's not a hard task, for sure. It certainly...
Does it cost more money?
The engine bills are the same. I've been saying this forever. The engine bills are the same now as they were when they were 900, Jared.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you the same question.
We buy engines, we know.
I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you last year. Is it then why not change it? If it's just such a simple fix, what is the argument for not doing it?
I'll tell you the same thing I told Dustin Long. Call Jim France and ask. I don't know. I don't have the answers for that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Denny's honesty, and I'm glad that if this is important to him and he believes that it'll make a difference. I would hope that he would continue this argument. I can't be sure that just adding horsepower is going to make a big difference. But Denny drives the cars, and I would trust his feedback on that. And I would certainly trust his feedback if he's telling us about the costs being pretty much flat. If you were to move from one horsepower to another, it wouldn't change anything. And maybe, there are some good reasons why NASCAR hasn't done that. And maybe NASCAR has told us what those are, right? If we have to go back and dive into the comments from Phelps and all those guys in the offseason and at Daytona, there was a lot of conversation around this. But Denny makes it sound like there are no hurdles to getting there. Doug Yates, who builds the Fords, all the Toyota guys, they all say they could go to 750 with no issue. And it can be before next weekend, right? It could be done overnight. But and it wouldn't change durability or anything or cost any additional money. I would love to see them give that a try at Martinsville. But, man, I'm telling you, I even with all of that, I still want them to try to work on getting rid of the shifting.
Yes.
I do not think that even though they're getting to where it's second nature to them to shift, having to drive into a corner and downshift and then do another shift on the next straightaway, doing that every single corner for 500 laps at Martinsville, right? That takes away from your processing on how to set the corner up, how to try to set up a car in front of you, how to try to make a difference in the corner. I just feel like it's such a distraction, and I've heard Denny and those guys say that. They're fine doing it. They don't mind doing it, but it is such a distraction from what they really would love to be focusing on, and that's getting the car into the corner deeper or differently or trying to figure out a way to drive the corner uniquely to be able to set up a pass for the car in front of them. And so I would love for them to continue to try to figure out a way to get the shifting out of ovals in general, particularly the short track stuff.
You know who I'd love to hear this opinion on?
Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson.
Yeah. Is he here?
He is here.
All right, let's get him in. Hey, man, how's it going? Kyle Larson has called in to the Dale Jr. Download. You won a couple weeks ago, and we got a deal with NASCAR where the winner calls in every week, but you had something going on last week. Couldn't make the call on Tuesday. What were you doing?
Tuesday. I don't remember.
Something about Indy 500, I think.
Pretty busy. Yeah. I was doing something, though. So, no, glad to be on this week, and wish I could have been talking to you after back-to-back wins, but we had a pretty rough race on Sunday at Phoenix.
What was going on, man? I watched the race and just saw you kind of mired in the middle of the pack there. What were you struggling?
Well, honestly, I didn't feel like horrible with my balance, but it was just really hard to pass. And we had a couple issues on pit road. Left rear wheel nut didn't get all the way tight, so I had to come back down pit road. After we gained like 4 spots on that stop, and then again later in the race, something happened on the right rear. So it was just a rough day. But honestly, I feel like for us to finish 14th was maximizing as much as we could. So, proud of the team and myself for not freaking out and crashing or something, because that's probably something I would have done last year. So, no, we'll just, take it, move on, learn from it, and try and do better next time.
So there's a lot of conversation around the short track package, Phoenix, the race, and all that. And I think the narrative or the idea today, at least, is that Phoenix is always going to be Phoenix. And I don't think that there's much you can do to the car to really change what the races will look like there. I will ask you, though, I enjoyed racing at Phoenix. I enjoyed driving the track. I think it's a fun, challenging track, the two corners being so different from each other. But I don't necessarily get excited about watching a race at that track. That's two different things, being behind the wheel versus sitting in the grandstand somewhere. Did you notice a difference in how you were able to, manipulate or be around other cars? Was it the same? I know you kind of struggled with the balance or trying to turn or pass underneath guys, but some drivers, Denny and Brad's, think it was just a tick better. And some have said that they couldn't tell nothing.
Yeah, I thought it was just a little bit better. And like you said, Phoenix is Phoenix. Like, as long as I've been going there, it's been very hard to pass. And the race has, been, fairly similar to what we had this past Sunday. Just, now with the next gen stuff, everybody's cars are more equal. So it's harder to move forward. But I thought you could manipulate the guy in front of you just a little bit more. I thought or at least maybe my car was just a touch better than before, but I felt like I could create angles and stuff differently on entry to try and set up myself to get position on people. So, yes, it was slightly better, but it wasn't way different. But for Phoenix, I don't really know what you can do to make it look, amazing. Yeah. So, it just is what it is. We'll see how it is. It's, I guess the next time we would run it, I don't know if we do it on the road courses or not, but Martinsville for sure. Yeah. So we'll see.
So the tire, they brought this tire to Martinsville last year at the end of the season, and it put a lot of rubber down. And I thought, from my perspective, I hadn't seen rubber get put down on that racetrack in a really long time. So I thought Goodyear might be onto something. They also brought a tire with a little more tread to Phoenix, and there was some conversation about how it had a little more fall off. And so I thought that was kind of promising. I wasn't sure if you felt the same about the tire being maybe a step in the right direction, or at least Goodyear's trying to make things better, and maybe you're seeing some of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what our fall off was last year in the spring or the fall, but it seemed kind of normal, to what we used to have. Like, we fall off to a point, and then we kind of just continue to run that pace or slowly fall off. So I don't know. I don't feel like the tire really affected the racing a ton, but hopefully they can keep working hard on trying to figure out whatever that may be to get some comers and goers and such. But I know it's a tough task, I'm sure, to build a tire that's going to make everybody happy. So for sure. I'm sure they're working hard at it, though.
So Denny's talking about horsepower, and he's been beating that drum for a long time. I'm not sure exactly where you are on that, but I think the question I'd like to ask you is, why would horsepower, or adding horsepower, why do drivers feel like that would make it better?
I don't know. I think maybe you're just your difference in top speed to minimum speed would be much greater. So I think that would allow you to create different styles of how to get around the corner. I think too, it's just going to allow for drivers to make more mistakes as you're entering the corner much faster, and or not necessarily much faster, but having to lift much earlier. I think it makes the braking zones longer, which helps. So too, and I think when you have that power, you can, like I said, run different lines and use that horsepower to accelerate. So I hope someday in my career that they can at least try it, like just take us to, I don't know, somewhere, Richmond or wherever, and go test, go to Martinsville, go test it, try it out. I feel like they've always used the excuse of, or at least I've heard the excuse of, well, we're trying to keep horsepower to where, other manufacturers might want to come in. Well, as long as I've been in the sport, which is longer than 10 years, it's been the same 3 manufacturers. So maybe somebody else is coming and maybe they're the ones pushing for lower horsepower, but I've yet to see anybody new come in, and all these, engine builders and teams are saying it's not going to cost any different to do it. I've heard our, Scotty Maxim say the same thing. He's like, dude, we could bring 1,000 horsepower next week,
right?
And it not anymore. They're literally taking the engine that I won with at Vegas and making it a 1,000 horsepower engine to put in one of Rick's personal cars they're building right now. So they can do it.
Yeah. Hey, I think that's a great answer, man, to help us understand like why a driver feels like the racing could be better, and explaining the longer braking zones and all the opportunity for drivers to make more mistakes. That's exactly what we want to hear, is why the drivers want this change. You are preparing for your debut in the Indy 500. What all is left on the table that you want to accomplish or you need to do to continue to prepare for that?
Well, I think at this point, I've gotten to do a couple tests by myself now, and that's been great. Just kind of just get me to focus on the car and what I'm feeling behind the wheel. But now I really want to get on track with other drivers and get behind them. See kind of how they do things, feel how the cars feel in traffic, the runs that are made, in the draft, all those sort of things. So that is next. That's what's coming in April. They have a 2-day open test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that'll be the first time I'm on track with other drivers. So I'm sure it doesn't get like super aggressive or anything, but I'm sure there'll be a time where I can get behind, a group of cars and get to feel that. So yeah, still got to work on all the little details though, pulling in and out of the pit stall, stuff like that, getting all the controls to where I'm, comfortable and confident with, where they're at and what they do. Cause all those little details I think is going to be the difference in, whether I run top 10 or I run outside the top 20. So, just got to prepare myself the best that I can and hopefully it all goes smooth.
Is there a driver in the series that you're leaning on to help you with all this?
I really haven't talked to too many, drivers yet. Tony Kanaan's been the guy, when I've been at these tests, that's been the one to really, point things out and help me. As it gets closer, I really foresee myself kind of leaning on Kurt Busch a fair amount if he wants me to. He was my teammate at Ganassi for a couple years there. So, and he's had, great experience, at the Speedway and the Indy cars. So, I plan on talking to him and anybody else, too, who's willing to, want to help me. But I've never been the type of driver to like go seek out a bunch of advice. I don't want to confuse myself with things. I don't want to have to filter through what everybody's saying. So, Jimmy would be a good guy to talk to just because he's done it most recently. But again, I don't want to overload myself either. I think to a point you almost have to try and figure some things out on your own. In that way.
Well, man, we appreciate you giving us some time. I know you were busy last week. Thank you for calling in today and making that up. Good luck going forward, man. We'll all be watching.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, bud. We'll see you. I was talking to Jeff Gordon the other week, and he said that watching Larson go through this process of preparing has been really interesting and compelling. He said he had a big moment at the test
at Phoenix too. Yeah,
that really was interesting. But it's I think everyone, regardless of whether you're a Larson fan or not, I think if you're a NASCAR fan, you want to see him go do well. So me personally, I want him to go there and have a great Indy 500. And I think too, it adds to his own legacy, right?
Absolutely.
We're trying to say that he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest driver in the world today. He's in that conversation. A run at Indy that's a top 5, top 3 run even would absolutely add to that conversation, man. And that's like, Foyt and Andretti and those guys, Tony Stewart, all those guys were able to go do those things.
I think he's one of the few drivers, at least within recent memory, that's doing the double that has a legitimate shot at winning both.
Perfect answer too about the power, adding power.
Yeah.
He's correct. I love that he pointed out it would lengthen the braking zone. So they added better brakes to this car. We've talked about it on the show. That shortened up the braking zone everywhere. And so the braking zone was always an opportunity to attack, right? If you could charge a corner a little deeper, that's why all the road course guys were so good for so long at the tracks when they'd come race with us, because they could really maximize that long braking zone. We were so skittish and timid on brakes at the end of the long straightaways at the Glen and stuff, and they could dive past us. The braking zones would be hundreds of yards long. Now they're shortened way up. And so all of that ability to challenge somebody in that space has gone away. And so that's a great point by him to bring that up. It would push drivers into potentially making more mistakes, creating passing opportunities. He thinks it would. He talked about how all the changes they made for Phoenix allowed him to try to shape the corner better, and it just allowed him more tools in his own driving style to maybe set up a pass. Well, he thinks that the power would also continue to do that. So, love that answer.